Hey guys, how's it going? Hope everybody's all doing well. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about a fighter that I've been interested in from very early in his career, Edgar Berlanga. He's taking on Alexis Angulo this weekend in what I'm viewing as a very interesting, and I think it's actually going to be a very tough fight for, or could be a very tough fight for Berlanga. I think it's a nice test. I really like the way Top Rank is stepping Edgar Berlanga's competition up each fight. We're seeing him in there against a lot of veterans and against a lot of different styles as well. And we've seen in his last three fights, he's gone the distance in all three fights, starting with Nicholson. He dropped Nicholson 4 times in that fight. I think it was an 8-round fight. He went the distance. Then they stepped him up against Caceres, who we saw give Billy Saunders a tough night before getting stopped in the last round. Caceres took Berlanga the distance in what was a very competitive fight. He actually put Berlanga down in that fight. I think Berlanga also tore his bicep in that fight. And then we saw him in his next fight. We saw him up against Steve Rolls. And Steve Rolls, we'd seen fight Golovkin, and Golovkin knocked him out. But we saw Steve Rolls, he's a pretty good, pretty decent boxer. Same with Caceres, pretty crafty veterans, pretty good boxers on the outside, decent movement. I think their movement gave Berlanga a little bit of trouble. He wasn't really cutting off the ring on them, more just kind of following them around. I'd like to have seen him cut the ring off a little bit better on them. He might have been able to stop those guys. But yeah, like I say, we're seeing him get stepped up in terms of his level of competition. And in this fight, we're seeing him against another older fighter, another veteran in Angulo. Like I say, Top Rank's very crafty with the way they've been moving him. I don't think we've really seen him in there with a guy with punches yet so far. We've seen him in there with experienced, crafty veterans like Caceres and Steve Rolls, but neither of them are major punches. I think Rolls has a little bit of pop, and Caceres has a bit of pop as well, but neither of them are major punches. They're more so, crafty, slick boxers, and they gave him trouble. Like I said, those were 2 good learning fights for Berlanga. And now we're seeing him against Angulo, also an older fighter like those 2 guys in their late 30s. But Angulo, for me, he's a different style, and he's a different test for Berlanga. Those guys tested Berlanga with movement and boxing skills, and I think Angulo, obviously, that's not his style of fighting. He's an aggressive, come forward puncher in there, very durable, and has heavy hands. So I think we're going to see a different test here for Berlanga in this fight. We're going to see if Berlanga can box a bit, because Angulo is going to come straight towards him, and he's going to be right in front of Berlanga. Now Angulo, he's not technically great. He hasn't got great skills, but what he lacks in terms of skills and creativity in terms of his attack and defense, he makes up for in terms of with his toughness and durability and heavy hands. So I don't think Angulo is an easy night for anybody really in the super middleweight division, and I don't think he's going to be an easy night for Berlanga. However, we'll see. And I also like the fact that we can make comparisons between Berlanga and David Benavidez, because we saw Benavidez fight Angulo. I actually think he's the only fighter that's ever stopped Angulo, made Angulo, I think, retire on his stool in that fight. Because we've got comparisons of Berlanga with Golovkin on the Steve Rolls fight, and with Billy Joe on the Caceres fight. We'll now be able to compare his performance against Angulo to how David Benavidez handled Angulo. Angulo, like I say, is very tough and durable, and he's going to come forwards, so we're going to see if Berlanga can fight on the inside, and we're going to see if Berlanga likes, a bit of his own medicine when somebody's hitting him with power shots and being rough and aggressive with him. And I'd like to see if Berlanga can box on the back foot, which I think we will find out in this fight, because I think Angulo will push Berlanga onto his back foot in this fight, or at least for parts of the fight. And Angulo needs to be aggressive and active in this fight, because there were large spots in the Benavidez fight where he was kind of just standing on the outside, letting Benavidez piece him up at distance. Angulo can't compete at distance with Berlanga, in my opinion. He's going to have to close down the range and be at close range or mid range, and he's going to have to let his hands go and be active in this fight. Try and back Berlanga up onto the ropes and get his work rate up. He can't stay on the outside and be inactive for large parts, because Berlanga will pick him apart. I like Berlanga as a fighter. I think he's fundamentally and technically pretty sound as a fighter. I think there are some small adjustments and corrections that he can make. I think he's a little bit flat-footed, a little bit heavy on his feet, but I understand he's a power puncher and he's trying to get as much power and leverage from his legs and from the floor up, and that's why he's a little bit flat-footed. But I think he needs to be a little bit lighter and more on his toes, especially this weekend. You don't really want to stand right there in front of Angulo and trade with him, because that'll give him his best opportunity to win the fight. Is if you really just stand in the pocket and have a shootout with him. That gives Angulo his best opportunity. So in this fight, I'd like to see Berlanga use a little bit more footwork and movement, use his legs a little bit more. I think Berlanga has a very good hard, sharp jab, and he steps in nicely with it, like shotgun jab, steps with the jab. However, I think he only throws singles the whole time with his jab. I think he needs to double and triple up the jab. Not every jab needs to be a hard jab. I think he needs to vary the jab up, change up the speed, change up the power, double it up, triple it up, and I think he needs to change levels with his attack as well, because he seems to just throw single jabs, and they are good hard jabs that with good accuracy. He's an accurate guy that doesn't waste much energy in the ring, similar to Canelo and Davis. He's an aggressive guy that is very efficient in terms of his attack, or I can't think of the word right now, but he doesn't waste any punches in there. So very accurate puncher and has good power, but like I said, I think he needs to double and triple up the jab and change levels with his attack as well. As well as with his defense, I think he needs to change levels, use a little bit more upper body movement and head movement. He can't just stand straight up in front of his opponent and try and catch shots on the guard. He has a pretty good high guard defense. However, we've seen him get dropped and get countered over his jab being a bit predictable, just throwing that single. He needs to use a lot more feints, use foot feints, because I know he steps with the jab a lot of the time to gain power. So I think he needs to use a lot of foot feints, hand feints, use a bit more head movement and upper body movement. Can't just catch shots on the guard the whole time, because you still feel that, especially when you're going to be fighting punchers now, getting to the top ranks of the division, there's going to be a lot of guys with power. You can't just catch their shots on the guard. They will still take a toll on you, and you will feel those shots. I think he needs to add in a little bit more upper body movement. The other thing I'd like to see Edgar Berlanga make use of is a bit more distance deception. He seems to just stay in one position in terms of his axis, or his axis, in terms of how far he is from his opponent. He doesn't use much distance deception of changing axis or head positions about in terms of how far or close he is to his opponent. He seems to just be kind of over his front foot, leaning a bit too much forwards or a little bit too upright, and I think that makes him a little bit easy to catch. So I think I'd like to see him change that position or axis a little bit up. Sometimes have a little bit more weight on the back foot, sometimes be a little bit more neutral, and sometimes leaning over on your front foot. Like I said, I know he's a power puncher, so I know he's trying to get as much power as he can, and that's why he's a bit flat-footed and a little bit leaning forwards like that. And I think in this fight he can't afford to just be as basic as that, because I think Angulo will be able to capitalize on that. If we see a flat-footed Berlanga, kind of not changing head slants or changing levels, I think this could become a very tough night for him. So like I say, in terms of keys to victory for Berlanga in this fight, I think we need to see him a little bit lighter on his toes, using a little bit more movement. I think his jab, like I say, he has a very good jab and great potential in his jab, but I think he needs to kind of use a little bit more variation with his jab, not just shotgun jabs the whole time. I think we need to see him use speed jabs, change up the the speed on it, use a little bit less power sometimes, because when he uses that shotgun jab and it jolts the opponent's head back, it automatically makes them give up too much ground, and that kind of makes him have to leap in or lunge in with his right hand to try and get that off. I think if he just uses a touching speed jab or a flicking jab sometimes, almost just as a blinder to set up the right hand, it would allow him to get a little bit more of his power shots off. Because that shotgun jab, like I say, it has so much power on it and makes opponents give up too much ground, and then they're out of range for you to land your right hand. So like I say, I think we just need to see a little bit more a variation from Berlanga in terms of his attack and defense in this fight. He has good fundamentals. He's a decent boxer, and we're going to find out, what type of boxer he is, at what level of boxer he is in this fight, and if he can box on the back foot, or if he's just a bully fighter. We're going to find out what happens when he gets pushed back, because like I say, Angulo is tough, durable, mentally tough as well. He doesn't give up easily, so he's going to test Berlanga and see if Berlanga can box on the back foot. So I really like this matchup. Like I say, in terms of keys to victory, I think Berlanga needs to use his jab, stick to his jab. He can't stop throwing his jab in this fight. He needs to control Angulo with the jab in this fight, and control distance with his legs and keep movement. Distance is defense. So in this fight, if Berlanga hasn't got great head movement, which he normally doesn't, I think he needs to use his feet to kind of control distance and use his jab to keep Angulo under control, and that in itself should keep him safe in this fight. Like I say, Angulo is not a guy that has kind of great disguise on any of his attacks. All his attacks are pretty crude. You can kind of see them coming. He telegraphs a lot of his shots. They're a little bit wide. Berlanga throws a much nicer, tighter, cleaner, more effective shots. So Berlanga is the favorite in this fight. He should be the favorite. Obviously, he's the guy with all the money behind him. He's the guy with Top Rank behind him, and they're trying to build his career. I think this is a very good bit of matchmaking from Top Rank to kind of keep improving Berlanga, but stepping up his competition. And it allows the fans and everybody to make comparisons between him and Benavidez's performance against Angulo. So I'm looking forward to this fight. I think it's going to be a very entertaining fight. You got two power punches in there that neither of them are boxers first. They're both aggressive aggressive fighters first, not out boxers. So I think it's going to make for a very entertaining fight. And I think it's not going to be an easy night's work for Berlanga, but I think he will be able to pull through and get the victory. Like I say, I'm really looking forward to this fight. Let me know in the comment section below how you guys see this fight going. Am I overlooking Angulo? Let me know in the comment section below who you are picking. Like I say, I think it's a very good bit of matchmaking from Top Rank. I'm looking forward to it. Thanks for listening, guys. Talk to you guys again soon. Cheers.